What's up, everyone? Hope everyone is doing well today. Today, I'm super excited to do the show and have a conversation with the awesome people who put together the first Black-owned market here in the city. So I'm super excited to let you guys be part of this conversation, and yeah, let's have some fun. Hey, what's up, Rochelle? What's up, Ivan? How are things today?
Uh,
Doing great.
yeah, pretty good.
Awesome. So let's just jump right into this. First, for the people who might not know who you guys are, if you could please just take like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and tell us a little bit about your story and where you come from. And we could start with, actually, since you're the right beside me, we'll start off with yourself, Rochelle.
Okay, so my name's Rochelle Ignacio. I'm a safety and inclusion specialist. So I have background in occupational health and safety as well as diversity and inclusion. As far as how I came into the story, I just really connected with Yvonne and I said, are we doing a Black-owned market in Edmonton? And now here we are. So I'll let Yvonne introduce himself.
Yeah, for me, I'm a social entrepreneur in the city. I own a startup called La Connexional Inc. with a few other folks, and yeah, like I've been doing some community work in Edmonton for a while now, similar to Rochelle. And yeah, like the way this happened again, Rochelle hit me like we shared something from Calgary. Rochelle hit me up and it was like, I don't really want to do this. We don't have time. I have no capacity. And then I thought about it after like a minute or so. I was like, you know what? We should do this. So yeah, and I think it just ended up being a great experience. And more background about me, I did a degree in environmental sciences and conservation with a certificate in sustainability. So a
Yep,
lot of focus in like social development, but also like interaction between the humans and the environment.
that's awesome. So tell us a little bit, and I want to take a couple step back. So you okay, so you had the idea, hopefully, to kind of participate or host this market, but you felt you didn't have the capacity. Can you tell us a little bit more about sort of that process that went into sort of creating this Black-owned market?
Yeah, I think I can start and Rochelle can probably add a few things. But yeah, so it was kind of like Calgary was doing has Calgary had been planning a market similar to this for about like a month. They had like 2 months to plan
Yep.
the market, and we saw it with La Connexion. We shared it on our story, and so Rochelle said, "Hey, are you all doing this in Edmonton?" And it was kind of like, "Yeah, we want to, but we can't. We don't have the capacity, mainly because we have a lot of other projects going on. Like we're building an app and." We have different fundraisers for COVID and different events that we do, and so from there, though, it was kind of like this because with La Connexional and the work that I've seen in the community,
Yep.
the idea with me is always to how do you get people to move from sharing things on social media to actually doing things, and
Totally.
the fact that she kind of mentioned that, hey, are we doing this, kind of like also triggered something in my mind. It's like I know I don't have the capacity to do it. I know we don't have the capacity to do it, but how can we make that happen? So I took a leap of faith. I asked her if she would be down to help. And she was like, you know what, I can help. But I think she kind of played herself back then because we soon realized that it was a lot. But she said that, and then I also did a call on Instagram asking, hey, we want to plan this market. And so next thing we know, we had about 8-7 people reach out to us from Instagram,
Wicked.
and that's how the teams kind of like got together. Yeah.
That's so awesome. And then from your perspective, Rochelle, what was that experience like in terms of formation? So you were the first person who kind of planted that seed of saying, "Hey, is this going to happen here in the city? And do you have the capacity?" And or like, what
Yeah.
was that like?
So for myself, I was actually working on my first documentary and it's on anti-racism in Edmonton. And so that's why I was like, I don't have capacity right now for this.
Hmm.
So I planted the seed and then Yvonne asked me if I would become involved. And then I was like, oh, I can help out a little bit. I don't know.
I love it.
I did not know the extent of what the market would turn out to be and how involved I would become in it, but it's been a really fun ride and an exciting journey to be a part of. So I'm glad that I planted the seed. I'm glad that Yvonne assembled a team together and we made something happen in a short amount of time.
So one of the things I'm always kind of echoing to people, especially, in kind of like this current climate that everyone's busy. We're all working on projects plus our own work and taking care of our families. The importance of collaboration and kind of coming together around projects. And then after that, dispersing so that everyone can go do their own thing. And so I'm curious, what was it like with the community here in the city in terms of this coming together to collaborate on this projects? And was there certain groups that you were working with, or was it just individuals? And maybe Yvonne, you could take that, and then after that, Rochelle, you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of amazing how things came together. So the team that ended up forming itself were different actors from different sectors or people that have done different work in the community. So we had someone from Yek to come up, someone from Ribbon Rouge, someone that has started their own podcast not podcast, but like discussion group. And so the team is kind of like the universe was speaking to us. And we also even had a creative director come in the team. So the people that actually came in the team just ended up being like different skill set that we actually needed to be able to like put this forward. So we basically had someone that had like the visual ideas for the thing. We had someone that was really good at managing volunteers. We had me and Rochelle that were just doing everything from email to sponsorship to connecting with people. And so it just kind of came in like it's actually crazy how this came together, because it came together so naturally. There was definitely a few bumps in the road because none of us had ever worked with each other. So we actually had to take some time to also learn about each other's different working style. But once we got past that, I think everything was just like super smooth. And it's really scary to collaborate because you don't really know who you're working with. We didn't really know each other. We didn't really know what styles of work each other had. But when we're looking at the bigger vision of things, everyone was able to kind of like take a step back and understand kind of like who was doing what and like how we could just all like put our strength and skills together to kind of like move forward.
Totally. And you nailed so many awesome points. And it's all about kind of having those teams that complement each other. And the one thing I have to commend you guys, like I loved your branding, I loved your social. It was simple, it was clean, it was dope, and it just fit, and it got the message across, which I think is what makes a good brand. And I thought that was wicked. And Rochelle, from your point of view, I know you were sort of taking care of some of the more sponsorships and the bigger partners. How was that scope kind of coming together and collaborating with brands and businesses and organizations?
So I'm going to back up a little bit. One thing I want to point out is the event itself was actually planned mostly on Instagram, which was interesting. We had a few Zoom calls, but all the discussions were on Instagram, sending voice notes and rapid fire pace. So that's something unique and speaks to the times that we're in right now. And then as far as working on sponsorship, I have a background in administration. So it was just really easy to get in there, create emails that were professional and approach different people. We had a lot of outpour from the community reaching out to us. So it was really exciting, and it's something I've never done before. And so now I'm just looking, how do we take that to the next level?
So that's so awesome to hear. So in the grand scheme of things, how long did it take you guys from idea to like planned, finished, polished off thing? Like how long did that take you guys?
Rochelle, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think you announced it on July 6th. And then we had our event July 26th, so 20 days.
Yeah, 20. And it was kind of like we announced the poster before actually started planning, because that was the urgency. So we had a team together. We were like, okay, we're doing this, but we announced the poster was already out there before we actually had already started setting things on stage. So it was crazy. It was yeah. I don't know what else to add to that.
So I was one of the dopest and coolest things that I saw was like a lot of the vendors that you guys were able to curate were all just like phenomenal, awesome brands. And I'm kind of curious, what was that demand like to getting all those vendors? And in addition to that, just due to capacity, did you guys have to turn down some vendors, or you couldn't display everyone? Like, what was that like?
I'll speak to that. I was the vendor manager as well. So We had 43 applications actually when we did our vendor call out and we had our vendor selection meeting. And we started off and we wanted to have a market with 10 people or 10 vendors. And so we had to make really difficult decisions of who we were accepting. And we got a lot of feedback. We offered feedback on why people weren't selected, and people were really disappointed, but it was amazing that they were so excited and wanted to be a part of it. So we left our vendor application is still up. So if anyone wants to apply for future iterations of the market, you're more than welcome to go do that. But I think we had about 58 applications in total the last time I checked as well.
And the final count was, sorry, you said 10 was the final count that you were able to
No,
have?
we wanted to have 10, but we ended up with 18 vendors.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was too hard to pick.
That's so awesome. It was too hard to what?
It was too hard to pick and choose which not to not take. And so we ended up like bumping it up a little bit so we could just accommodate more people.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about, and once again, before the event, tell me what was like sort of like the attention, like whether it was attention on social media amongst some of your peers or even to in the broader scope. I saw you guys had some media attention around this too. What was that like? And was it all positive? Was there any negative? Like,
So I can speak a little bit to that. So it was really positive. The idea behind this market and one of the reasons that it happened so early and so fast, it was because when the idea came out, we were kind of noticing how people were already going to the back to the normal lives, because what happened with BLM, people were like, a lot of social media activism is happening where a lot of people are sharing a lot of things, a lot of resources, which is great. But it was like, how do we make these people go from like supporting people online to actually buying products and actually putting the money where the mouth is? And so that was like a big thing why we were like trying to rush this, so we can not let that wave die, but also make a test market happen, so we can also now know how to do it better after. So the attention was amazing. At the beginning, we grew the page from 0 to about 1,500 people in like a week or two, and the page is now at like almost 3,000 followers. So the attention is there. People really, really wanted something like this, and so it was. So that was a positive. Now, when you look back at some of the comments that we've seen on the global news pages, when you go through those comments, it just really hurts you, because a lot of people don't understand why these things are happening, and people have said things like this market is racially motivated, it's racism, and it really plays. You don't want to take that energy in, but after reading like 100 comments like that, is like, it kind of hurts. But I think that's probably where, but I think overall it was really positive. The diversity of the people that came to the market really spoke to the fact that the city really wanted something like this. It wasn't, you would think it would just be a lot of Black people, but it was a lot of non-Black folks all around the place. A lot of white folks, a lot of Asian folks, a lot of Edmonton was there. So
totally. And I like that's the best way to put it. Edmonton was there sometimes, because we lose sight, and it's funny how when we create projects like, which is beautiful, like a Black-owned market, and it's unfortunate sometimes people respond to that with negativity, not understanding that there's value in that, and there's structure, and there's a reason why we're clearly creating these like platforms and creating these projects. So that's great to hear. And then, Rochelle, from your point of view, what were some of your thoughts around sort of that lead up in terms of the tension and conversations, and hopefully some of the positive notes?
So once again, this is a new space for me, being in like the center of some attention. And so one thing I would say, or wish I had even, and like my advice, is to get some media training. As far as the negative comments, I think that we had close to like 900 to 1,000 people come through our market. So I don't really have time for that negativity, because the market was successful. People were saying, we want more of this. We're so excited to see this. And then the fact that people were waiting in line for hours to attend. So if people want to have their negative thoughts, that's fine. but I just want to move forward in a positive way. And we did this for the Edmonton community. We did it for the Black community. We wanted to bring people together. So yeah, the negative, I'm just trying to push it off to the side and really not let it affect what we want to do and accomplish.
And amen to that. And that's so wicked. You guys had 900, 1,000 people. That's so huge for your first event. And that kind of goes, so I've done like several events in the past, and doing outdoor events is just like this emotion, because you're watching. I'm sure you guys were refreshing the weather every day, every hour, like, is it gonna be nice out? Yes, it's gonna be nice. It better be nice. And it was gorgeous and beautiful, and so I'm happy everything kind of turned out in the end for that. So walk me through like the night before, because I think the night before is where everything gets interesting in respect to your DMs or your phone calls or last minute problem solving. And then tell me like just the day of what was going through and what were some of the process you guys are doing.
I'll take that. So we actually had a meeting. I think we had a meeting at 9 a.m. and we're not really morning people. I think I'm the only morning person. So it was like, let's get our gears going. And we all just went kind of full throttle for the day. And by 6 p.m., we actually decided we're going to have an insane day. So let's try and wind this down and shut this down. So it might be different from most events in that we wanted to just let ourselves relax and mentally and physically prepare for the day ahead. Myself, though, I was working a little bit on the side and I was starting to get different funding. People were saying, oh, we want to give you $100 for lunch. So then we had money to feed the volunteers, which was really important. So then it was a matter of little last minute things. So for that, it was, can we find a Black owned business that we can get this lunch from last minute? And we were showcasing small businesses. So can we find like a small business as well? So just trying to fine tune all those little details. But I think that in the end, all those little details paid off, and that's what made such a successful event.
And as a quick follow-up, I can imagine you guys, like, as you were about to open, you saw the line forming. What was going through your head when you started seeing people coming early and just lining up?
I was stressed. I think it was 1:45. And I was like, can we do this? Do I call this off? What's going on? But like we were doing it. So yeah, that was me personally.
No, I think just to kind of echo that sentiment, it's like, the night before we were, honestly, I think it was maybe Friday that we just all felt like we were just kind of like brain dead and exhausted because we've been working so much. And it was kind of like that Saturday was kind of like, how do we work in the morning and try to rest ourselves so that we actually efficient on the day off. I myself, there's a lot of things that I was supposed to do that I didn't end up doing, and I just fixed it in the morning because it was kind of like, at this point, I'm super tired. I don't really want to do anything else. But, there were still things on the side like social media, DMs to reply to that I had to do. So again, you're trying to rest, but you have these little things that you still have to do. And I think on the day off, we did a really good job of like, I think for me, that first 2 hours, I don't know about Rochelle, but those first 2 hours were really stressful, or that first hours. But then after that, it was just kind of like, okay, we already 2 hours in, whatever happens. And honestly, our team of the volunteers were amazing. The volunteer coordinator that we got it's literally like the structure that we're able to set really allowed us to kind of like be able to rest on the actual day off in some sort of sense. But I think we did a really good job of setting all of that before so that we weren't too stressed on the day off.
And that's so smart because ultimately this market was a big coordinated event, and you need that to run successful events, or else then you're going to be running around the place stressed, running around the place trying to do 100 things. So that's wicked that you guys are able to have those kind of key pieces together. So looking back, because I know, like I said, from past experience, whenever you look back, you always see literally 100 different things that you could have done better, or that little thing that you could have tweaked that would have changed some stuff. From the people who are like watching this and consuming it and want to host their own event, or even have ambitions to host their own markets, do you have any feedback or information that you can kind of give them just to allow them to hopefully host a more successful and better event?
Give yourself longer than 3 weeks to plan. That's my first advice. I think that Avon assembled a really good team. So make sure you know who's on your team. That forming stage is important. So we were able to get past that because we all had the same goal in mind. However, giving your time to get to know your teammates' working styles is key. And I think setting up your structure, so setting up your vision from the onset and making sure everyone's really clear and established of what the end point is.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna echo exactly that. I think again, when we look back at it, more time would have been better, but I guess we had a reason to not do it with more time. But I think the team is really important. Setting that structure. Honestly, even have like if you're planning something this big, have like a how do I say that? Like a team meeting before even like starting anything to plan, and actually get people to meet each other. Learn about each other working styles and whatnot. But I think they're so. But for me, I'm such like an action person, and so that's why when I look back at it, and when I look back at how we made this happen, I'm always like I like taking actions. I like taking actions and then failing and then understanding why I failed. And this time we took actions and we didn't fail. It was super stressful. We took that action, we took that leap of faith, and it worked out. But I think for me, it's just always just take action and then kind of like see what's the end result and then try to go back at it and fix it. Because if you don't try something, you probably you will never know if it's gonna work or not.
Yeah, totally.
And I also completely agree with that. Sometimes we get caught up, especially nowadays when we have so much information at our fingertips. We do research, we find case studies, we find examples, and we find all this information before we actually do it ourselves and learn it from ourselves and experience, the challenges and the ups, but then also the downs, so we could do things better, and versus just keep on researching and studying. So moving.
It's actually, Bobby.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's interesting you say that because I have been thinking about a market idea for some time, and because of COVID, I put it on hold. And then somehow I ended up planning a market, and it was unrelated to my original idea. So I think that sometimes you have to take that leap of faith, and you don't know what you can accomplish. And sometimes you might fail, but you won't succeed unless you try.
Yeah, 100%. And I think more people should just try. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Just,
Yeah.
That's so wicked. So going forward, like in the future, and I'm sure, I'm positive as soon as you guys were done, the next question was, when's the next one? So, I'm curious, what is, I'm not going to say when the next one is, but what's in the future? I'm curious, what is some of your guys' plans or goals, and what are you guys considering just from all of this support and hopefully empowerment?
So there's next up for sure is there's an aphrodisiac market happening. So we had one of the members that joined the team. Her name is Nilo, and she's also an amazing leader in the community. She owns so many businesses, so many different ventures, and so Nilo is planning an aphrodisiac market on August 29. And so that market we're calling the sister market because she's been part of the team and we're working closely with them. And so some of the vendors that weren't that weren't selected for a market, some of that information will be passed on over to her so she can also create her own market. So that's super exciting. August 29, that's the one that's next up for sure. I think when it comes to a team, we were thinking about September, again, still not in stone, but if you're trying to keep things consistent, if the aphrodisiac market happens in August, maybe have that one last market before winter hits in Edmonton. That would be really nice. But I think what's next is also really building a team. Well, not building a team, but having a staff operation, actually meeting each other, eating food together, getting to know each other, so that next time when we do this, we actually have a better understanding on how everyone is working, and also have a better understanding of who wants to stay for the long haul. Because people joined this first one because it was the first one, and they wanted to make this happen. But now we have to figure out who is willing to, who wants to keep doing this, because there's a lot of free and volunteering work, and it's not
Totally.
necessarily easy because we all have, like you mentioned, we all have our little projects, we all have things to take care of. So how do we know where everyone is at and move forward?
Yeah. Cool. And then Rochelle, what about yourself? What do you sort of see as the next steps for this market potentially?
We've had a lot of people reach out and they're very interested in having additional markets. Some people are like, we should have this every 2 weeks. And then it goes all the way to, we should have this every year. So I think that right now we're in that evaluation stage of who are our long-term sponsors, what's their long-term goal, and how do we make this a sustainable endeavor? Because we don't want it to be something that was trendy, and we want this to be something that becomes part of the fabric of Edmonton.
Oh, and thank you two so much for that, because I think sometimes the almost like the worst things that could happen is with this kind of lens now, and especially this black lens that's kind of shaping across the board within businesses and groups and organizations in the city as a whole. I hope that these events or activities or these projects just turn ongoing, just so that we just have a diverse amount of new initiatives, just to be part of, like, the ecosystem of what Edmonton is and what makes Edmonton Edmonton, because I think these initiatives and events is what defines the city. And it's, we have so many in the past that has occurred that kind of speak to that. So that's so awesome. And then I'm curious, have you guys ever thought about doing potentially like a digital side with notions like Instagram shops being available and stuff like that, of curating people and hosting shops on there?
So I can kind of like speak a little bit to that. So that's actually really cool and interesting that you brought that up. One of the things that when I was thinking about what the future was creating a marketplace. However, there's actually someone in Calgary that has actually started creating a Black-owned marketplace online that they wanted to make. So it's definitely something that is on the table, because with COVID and with everything happening, is how do we take things to the digital so people can always support vendors, but also after the market is done, what about people that weren't able to attend? How they can they connect with these shops? So
Totally.
Always finding ways to have those follow-up, channels and whatnot. So I think that's a really great idea. It would definitely take a lot more time, also a lot of more work, but we're looking at connecting with that person from Calgary and see what they are doing, see how we can integrate that. But I hadn't thought of the Instagram shop thing. That could be something that we integrate, because with each vendors or each market, we can take the product, put it in our Instagram page, and people can actually shop through our Instagram for the time being or for that specific market. But I hadn't thought of that. That's really dope. That's really dope. It'll be a lot of work, but it'll be really dope, I think.
Yeah,
I was going to say, we also we're talking about with Heritage Festival. So they're doing a virtual festival this weekend. And because it was really important that we're vendor centric. So all of our vendors, whether or not they were accepted into the market or they're on our wait list, they were connected with Heritage Festival because they have a market happening this weekend with cultural goods. Wicked. So even though we're not doing that right now and we're looking to do it in the future, we're also connecting people to the resources that are available to them at this present time.
Oh, that is so huge, because that just aligns 100% to their brand value of what Heritage Days is curating, and with what they're curating in terms of that digital component for, because of this current landscape, it just makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, one of the things that I'm always kind of, figuring out, and I think a lot of the people here, and I think it's also important in terms of creating, a self-sustaining thing, was this first one, were you guys able to generate some income for this project so it can turn into a self-sustaining kind of thing? Or was this like the prototype to then manifest into hopefully something more self-sustaining?
I can go first. No, we weren't able to generate. Honestly, we weren't able to generate any income really. We were almost at loss. We basically cut it really close. And I think that was our main goal going into this. We didn't have any funding. We didn't have any money. We start planning in this with maybe $200 in the La Connexional bank account that we had. And it was like, okay, we have this little money that we can use. Let's see how that goes. And so it was, honestly, I'm personally just grateful that we were able not to lose anything, especially with how everything came together and how we're able to really mobilize enough funds to be able to allow the vendors not to pay the store where they paid, but we're going to reimburse them. And so that was a really important aspect of that. How do we make this market as accessible as possible, with little barriers as possible, so that anyone really from our community is able to, come and sell the products. So I think we weren't able to make any, but I think after everything that we gathered, I think for the next one, we'll definitely make sure that, again, sustainability, how do we make sure that our own staff, our own volunteers are being well treated so that we have enough funding to ask for them. And so that also means going back to a sponsorship package. We did that sponsorship pack. We did it in one night, really fast. So going back to that and actually understanding the value that we offer into these sponsors and what that actually means on paper, so that we can have a more sustainable market and also actually receive the value that we're supposed to receive for the opportunity and the awareness that we bring in.
Totally. And Rochelle, did you have any thoughts about that?
I think Yvonne covered it. So working with sponsorships, I know that a lot of sponsors would allocate explicitly what they wanted their money to go to. And so we really worked within the guidelines that they provided us. So some people were saying, I want to support your COVID supplies. I want to support your lunch. So we have a little bit of money left over. It's not enough to put on another market. But I think one thing interesting to highlight is the community outpour. So donation in kind. On our Instagram story right now, there's a community member who just donated their camping tent so that a vendor could have a tent to use. So the vendors got tables, chairs, and special event tents for free of charge. And that was all the community. So it was different organizations and businesses that just donated the supplies we needed to put on a great market, and looking to, create sustainability so that we have access to the equipment we need. And running around and getting all that equipment was a bit of a challenge. So how do we get all that equipment in one pool?
Totally. No, and I think that's awesome to hear, and I like all the points you guys mentioned, because sometimes, it's funny how sometimes this conversation about, creating these business models or even to the dollars and cents is so taboo, but I think it's one of the most important conversations, because it's sometimes what allows people to actually put on these events consistently, because everything comes at a cost. Volunteers have their limits, and so if you want to create a self-sustaining project that will be happening on time, on point, and the key, it requires, bottom line, paying people to, compensate them for their time. And as, event organizers, boy, I could just imagine the amount of hours you guys put in. And it's basically, you're all just volunteering, and that in itself is not self-sustaining, because like I said, you guys both are so busy. So I, first of all, want to commend and thank you two for putting on such an awesome event for the community and all the volunteers and people around you. And number two, I think Edmonton needs this. And so, put that ask out, put that ask out for the next event, just to make sure that it's that much more self-sustaining. It's hey, if everyone can donate $40, $50, $100, whatever, I wouldn't be surprised if you just got what you needed, just to make sure that this thing continues, because I think it's super important. And once again, I just thank you two for curating this, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time.
I know you're thanking the two of us, but really it was a team. So it was our organizing team. Nunu and Sammy from Habisha Market, they put in a lot of resources and time towards the market as well. And even our sponsors, so whether it was in-kind sponsors or corporate sponsors, we really couldn't have done it on our own. And we are thankful for what we were able to gather. But yeah, that sustainability is the model we're running towards now.
Yeah. I definitely want to echo those sentiments. It's the team and even the volunteers, we had some volunteers design some amazing graphics for us. Just like even when we look at the volunteers and the caliber of volunteers that we got, man, it was like people with just like so many great skills. And I think right now I'm personally excited to see how we're gonna move forward with these volunteers, with this group that was formed, and how we're really going to take this to the next level, because the amount of community that and collaboration that got together to make this happen is honestly insane, especially considering the short amount of time that we had. That still boggles my mind that we're able to make this happen this efficiently and without almost any hiccups. And it's just really grateful to see that the potential is right here in Edmonton. And I think that really fuels me a lot more. It's like, hey, we did this in 3 weeks with these people that had all these amazing skills, with these volunteers that came, with these attendees that waited in the sun for like an hour or two. So it's really amazing
Sorry
to know
about
that.
that.
Huh?
I said we're sorry you had to wait.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome to hear. So I know it's like still a working day and there's still a lot of stuff, and you two yourselves are quite busy. So I just want to say thank you for jumping on here. I was wanting to have this conversation, especially while things are still fresh. And it's so exciting to kind of hear what the future holds for the Black-owned market.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
This was
Thank you
fun.
for having us. Yeah, I really love that.
Awesome. Talk to you guys